the federal and state level. And so we're all done with all of that. So it's really nice. We are like full-fledged 501c3 nonprofit. We can take donations. We can now apply for certain grants. We're eligible for a lot of stuff now, which is really, really cool. And this is really going to help the Grotto just propel to new levels, which is really exciting. This is kind of what it took to get where we are today. These are all the legal hoops that we had to go through. This is what the board of directors has been working on the last several months, is getting all this information done. Big thanks to Blake Goodso, who wrote a lot of this and filled out a lot of the legal paperwork for the Grotto, like the bylaws and the articles of incorporation and filing everything. He helped us a lot with that. But this is what the board has been working on, is putting all this together. And there's a lot of work that we're still doing behind the scenes that people are not seeing right now, but you will as the months and this year goes on. And it's just going to make our Grotto that much better. So this is the organization of the Grotto. If you're new, and even if you've been here, this is just kind of a flow of what the Grotto looks like now that we're an official recognized organization by the state and the federal government. We have our board of directors that are up at the top. And they're not really like, they are, but they're not above the executive committee. They kind of work together, and but they're also separate in what they do and their responsibilities. Your board of the directors are going to do a lot of the big picture stuff for the Grotto, a lot of the finance stuff, the boring legal stuff and taxes and all that kind of stuff, the paperwork. It's the executive committee here that is running the day-to-day. So all the things that we've been doing for years and years, the leadership that's been in place and how it's been working, that's really staying the same. The board is now just put there to do a lot of this big picture stuff and help the Grotto get grants and finances and take care of legal stuff. But this is kind of the flow here. We've got our officers. We've got 4 officers, our chairman, vice chairman, secretary, and treasurer. Those are our current ones. And then we have our committees. Okay, we've got 4 committees. Those committees take in various things and what they're over and what they do. So if you're interested in joining a committee or being part of a committee, these are our 4. Talk to one of those people, and they can help you get involved in that committee. And I'm sure they could use some help. I know SRT training committee, they're looking for teachers and people to help out with that. So contact Eric if you're interested in helping other people learn vertical skills. And we have our members. Now, how this works is our officers are elected every year in December. The Grotto gets to vote on who they want as the officers and people run. It's like a general election. For the board members, every 2 years, every year, 2 board members go up for, you could say, election. They are appointed by the chair, which right now is Matt, and then the whole executive committee votes on that. So that's how they get put into place. Our committee leadership is just appointed by the chairman, whoever the chairman is at the time. And then, of course, we have our members that help support and make the Grotto work and run. So what will be different with the Grotto now that we're a 501c3? Really not a whole lot. We've been a 501c3 now for a little over a month. There really hasn't been a whole lot of change. And it's really going to be kind of like that moving forward. The biggest change is we're going to get funding. We're going to be able to get a lot more funding to do more projects. Like the expedition that we just did to Little Brush. Now that we're a 501c3, we can acquire funds to hopefully help pay for more of that or pay for all of it when we do future trips like that. We want to eventually do scholarships to the NSS and NCRCs and lots of things that we would like to do. And being a 501c3 allows us to do that. And so that's going to be one of the biggest changes, is we have access now to get more funding, and your board is working hard to go ahead and make that happen. And I'll talk about in a minute how the rest of you can help if you're interested in doing that. One of the biggest differences that you'll notice, and it's really not a big thing, but liability. Now that we're an official organization recognized by the state and registered with the state and with the government, we take on a little bit more liability. So we have had a liability waiver done by an actual attorney. And that's just like if you go to the rock climbing gym, you sign a waiver. You go to the trampoline park, you sign a waiver. Everywhere you got to sign waivers. We've got a waiver now that everybody's got to sign to participate in things. So that's going to be one of the biggest differences, is we're just going to push that a little more. We had waivers before. They just weren't written by attorney, but now we've got an attorney waiver, and so you're going to see that. But other than that, our directors handle the boring legal stuff, and then, like I said earlier, your executive committee can continue to run the day-to-day operations of the grotto. So why become a 501c3? Why the big push? Why all the work? Biggest reason is just, like I said many times before, access to funds, access to money. Because with all the money that we can get, it just equals more and more possibilities for the grotto and what we're able to do as a grotto, right? And up until now, we've been running projects, we've been doing projects, and all the funds have been coming from our members, from little grants that we receive. But now we're eligible for a lot more and a lot more money, and that just means we can get more gear. We can do bigger projects, expeditions. Like I said, we're hoping to do scholarships in the future. There's just so many things we can do, and it could go from, even if it gets us just a few $1,000s every year than what we've been getting, that's going to be huge in helping us with what we're trying to do in our mission and our goal as a grotto. But if we can get even bigger than that, we can go on things like fully funded expeditions, maybe eventually get land, build an SRT tower. I mean, there's just so many possibilities with becoming a 501c3 nonprofit that we can now do. So it's really exciting. So just lastly to finish here, and then I'll take any questions if anybody has any. We definitely could use your help with nonprofits. Most donations actually come from individual donors and not grants. We are looking at applying to grants to get funding, and those will be helpful. But donors, individual donors, are a big part of how nonprofits get their money. So we have a PayPal account, we have Zelle, and we're currently working on getting a Venmo account set up as well for the grotto. And these are places people can donate, and we can send them a receipt for their donation so that they can present that to their accountant or their taxes so they can write that off on their taxes each year. So we encourage you, if you know people who are looking to give to a charity, they are technically a charity, they can donate to the grotto and write that off on their taxes. If you're interested in donating as well, you can donate to one of these areas too. If there's projects you're interested in as well, like if you're Lost Creek Lost Creek. So something like that, Bryce is really heading that project. If there's like special gear you're wanting for a project like that, come talk to the board, let us know, and we'd be happy to work with you on how we can get funds for that project. That's one of the great things is it doesn't have to just be the board that goes out there and chases money. You too can go chase money as well in behalf of the grotto. But just come talk to the board first to get that approval, and we'd be happy to have you guys go apply for a grant or go chase some money. Again, just talk to us, and we can work together to make projects happen. So it's really, really exciting. We're really happy to be moving forward this year as a nonprofit and see what we can do. Does anybody have any questions? Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys. I'll sit down. We can have whoever's coming to present come up. Thank you.
All right. Let's see. Before Debbie comes up, I do just want to briefly say that we are on thanks to an anonymous donor, we're going to be offering a $500 scholarship for NCRC, and so that'll open up hopefully next week. So keep an eye out for that. Anytime. Yeah. So yeah, it'll come out, and you'll see the details on how you can apply for that scholarship. So so that's some good news. Now we can have Debbie come on up. You like Debbie? We'll get your presentation going.
Do I have to kneel down or can I stand up?
You can stand up. I'll get your laptop plugged in here. I'll enable screen sharing here.
been to search and rescue?
And then I was gonna be DJ tonight. All right, let's.
My mic is on.
All right. You're good to go.
Okay, here we go. Start again. So I've been to search and rescue, International Technical Rescue Symposium, Mountain Rescue Association, the Utah County Sheriff's Office. I've never given it to cavers. So this is basically geared towards above ground rescue, which I've had for many, many, many years. But I thought it would be good for cavers to see what an above ground rescue sees when they go underground. I have never given this presentation that people weren't just at the end of the presentation. In fact, one I gave it in for the International Technical Rescue Symposium. It's called ITERS. It's easier to say ITERS. The room is totally quiet, just absolutely silent. And thank goodness, over in the corner were several NCRC instructors who I pointed everybody towards, because we had people from all over the world there that were rescued that had never dealt with cave rescue. They thought they were ready for everything. And then they saw my PowerPoint. And then that really made a nice dialogue between NCRC instructors and our above ground. And then when I went to Mountain Rescue Association, which I was part of until I retired, search and rescue people were really good at going down, rappelling, really great. Never occurred to them that they might have to go back up. So when I was given the presentation, I was also teaching with Tom Evans. Some of you guys know him. Tom Evans and I were teaching a diminishing loop counterbalance. And it was hysterical to watch, because I'm on both. You know, I'm a caver and I'm on search and rescue. Now I'm retired. But then it was hysterical because our people are great at going down. They're great at rappelling. And then trying to explain to them how to go back up and how to take somebody back up. If you've never seen a diminishing loop counterbalance, you need to take NCRC class. I put the biggest guy, and these are search and rescue guys are big, the biggest guy I could find on a rope and hoisted him up, and they were just dumbfounded. So if you've never seen it, you need to take a class. All right. So we're comparing and contrasting below ground and above ground. I call it surface. Now, the difference between surface and rescue, this is us on a rescue up, I think it was at Mount Nebo. And this is a cave rescue. Big difference. I don't expect the same response from you guys, but I mean, you guys can be like, yeah, and all right. Before we get too deep into this, I wanted to show them typical places that we go. We as cavers, the smaller the better. It's really great. But it's just something that they weren't ready for. Okay, as I wanted them to look at, as we go through these pictures, the gear that we carry above ground is big. I've got a 65-liter pack that I used to carry, and it was always full. And that's what you carry above ground. In the winter, it's worse. In the summer, it's not as bad. But let these people, I would ask them what kind of equipment, as we're going through the pictures, I would ask him, and I'm going to ask you too, what kind of equipment do you think you will need for a rescue? What will you need for a rescue? Now, this hit many of us in the face many years ago before we had learned about cave rescue. I mean, Andy was only, I think he'd just barely taken level 2. I don't think Tom was even in it. It just hit us square in the face many years ago that you don't know what you don't know. I mean, we were dumbfounded, and it just made us all realize that being a caver wasn't enough, that you have to have an understanding of how to rescue yourself and how to rescue the people you're with. Small Party Cave Rescue came out of that because it was a horrible disaster. Okay, where would you get the type of equipment you need? What experience would you need? What skills do you need for cave rescue? And you'd be surprised how basic they are, but how life-saving they are. And what resources do you have to perform this? What do you have? You'd be surprised how many cavers, how much stuff you have that once you know how to use it, it will literally be life-saving. Where do you get the resources? Does your team have the training, the skills, experience, safety, and efficiency to work in these situations? I have allergies, so my apologies. So this was my little boy. He's now almost 25. That one back there is Jason Knight. We were in this big slot cave years ago. This is normal for cavers. To you guys, it's like no big deal. But for an above ground rescue, it just rattles their world, because when you think about above ground rescuers, they're all used to being above ground. When you take a non-caver, and there was a NCRC instructor who wrote, he's an ER doctor, wrote an article about this. When you take an above ground rescuer and you put them underground, a paramedic, an EMT, I'm an EMT, they suddenly, their experience goes down to that of a Boy Scout. Okay. They're so overwhelmed by confined space, being underground. Just, it's a whole different world to them. And as cavers, we don't understand that. We really don't get it. But to them, it's just, they're overwhelmed. I was on a rescue with the sheriff's office, and it wasn't really a cave. It was an old mine that had been explored. It was about 30, 40 feet down. This guy had taken his ATV, and literally it looked like he just like placed it right down in there. And he rolled about 20 feet. And he was so drunk that he didn't feel anything. Oh, am I not talking loud enough? Okay, thank you. I'm usually a big mouth, so. And we were you could literally see daylight. You did not need a headlamp. But this guy who's a paramedic was so stressed that when he spiked the IV bag, it blew up. Now, if you know anything about IVs, they're not that hard, and you learn in school how to spike them and make them work. But he was so stressed, it literally blew up. Well, by the time they let me down there, he was just beside himself, and I had a harness. He couldn't remember how to put a harness on somebody. He didn't know how to use an OSS. You'll learn all this stuff if you don't know it. How to use any of our usual above ground rescue devices. He was totally clueless. And then it was just the stress. It's hard once you're a caver to kind of step back and remember what it was like before you were a caver. But when you get emergency room doctors, nurses, you get anybody like that underground, they just kind of shut down. So we have to understand that as cavers, yes, in some counties you have to call 911, but as cavers, we rescue cavers. Okay, we understand underground, we know how to move underground, and we're not going to have the same emotional baggage. Does that make sense? So this is a little different than giving it to above ground rescuers. Okay, a few more spots. This is for us, this is no big deal. This is down in Bloomington Cave. That is on way out on the Oker Mountains. It's a private cave. This, when they saw this picture, blew their mind. This is up Provo Canyon. I might have like Spanish Moss. How many times have I been there? Spanish Moss. You have to go over that rock and then rappel down and then around a corner. Anyway, trying to get a big pack through there is impossible. You cannot. And helping them understand that we as cavers have to pare down a lot of things we have so that we can get in and do what we need to effectively. And there's just, these are just a few slides showing them what cave entrances look like. For us, not a big deal. More cave entrances are inside of caves. And these are, look at this and think, if one of these young ladies got stuck back there, how would we get them out as cavers? How would we get them out? How would you get them out if they were immobile? These are things we need to think of as cavers. I mean, caving is fun. It's great. I'm doing it for many, many years. But how would you get your buddy out of there? These are things we need to think of and be prepared for, because I'd been caving for years before this disaster happened many years ago. And then we were hit in the face with reality of we didn't know what to do back then. We were totally dumbfounded. So I want you guys to think about this. How would you get these people out? How would you get your friend out? Crack and crevice. That can be pretty scary. Biggest thing I want people to know is you don't know what you don't know. What you don't know will kill you. It's really important for us to be educated and experienced and trained. And the things that Grotto puts on, they don't charge for. Man, 20 years ago, there was no such thing. And we paid the price. But now people are educated or trained. There's more information for you than ever before. And making sure that you take advantage of this is really, really important, because you don't know what you don't know until you're hit in the face with, how do I get my buddy out of here? When my son started caving, I had to make sure I could get my boy out of that cave if something happened to him. I didn't want something to happen and not be able to get my child out of a cave. So it became really important to me to be able to rescue my son. Surface rescue as opposed to cave rescue, the difference are environment, medical care, totally different, above ground and below ground medical care. Movement of a patient is absolutely different. Equipment and rigging. How many of you have done any rigging before in caving? Good. We're going to change that for the rest of you. All right. Communication, philosophy. I know I can say that word. Extreme tight spaces. OSHA does not apply underground. It applies in mines, but it doesn't apply underground. So above ground, we have to deal with OSHA. Underground, they don't even count. Stress of being hundreds of feet underground. There's all kinds of things that above ground need to deal with. Lack of anchoring points, confined space techniques, they don't work. What some people are like, yeah, I've taken confined space, and that's great. It doesn't work in a cave. Okay. Firemen have had confined space, and they think this is wonderful, and then they go underground, and it doesn't work so well. Okay, so you have complete darkness, cold, muddy lakes, waterfalls. Most people didn't know that there are lakes and waterfalls underground. The majority of the public is clueless. They don't know what they're walking over. It's pretty sad. All systems must be extremely compact, and rescuers need to be smaller. Some of the big, huge search and rescue people don't fit underground. Okay, this is what we see. We have no problem with that. This is what non-cavers see. Seriously, it just weirds them out. I can't tell you, years ago, Gretchen Baker had an OCR, Orientation to Cave Rescue, and I was helping out with that. And we had one of their new rangers, new guy, tough guy. He was Navy and maybe he was a Marine or something. He was a tough guy. We got him underground. He couldn't remember how to take a blood pressure. He was that overwhelmed. And this is a tourist cave. Okay. He was that overwhelmed. This is what he saw. But that's what we see. So it's a big difference. Okay. Explaining to above ground people that we can't have 3 people to 4 people on each side of the litter that we're carrying out, that sometimes, if you're lucky, you can get 2 people back to that caver, if you're lucky. A lot of times you can get 1 person back to try and get them unstuck enough to drag the body out far enough that others can then help. Larger rescuers may not be able to fit in a cave. That's another thing. Above ground, they're awesome. Underground, people like me are our best bet. Small people are the one. In fact, when you go to NCRC, when it gets really tight, the small people are sent in to take care of things. The use of there's ways above ground of moving people. There's just specific things you're supposed to use. And that's what everybody is. That's just the way it is. And then when you get underground, it's like, nah, we step over the patient, we lean over the patient, we may even crawl over the patient. That's just the way it is. And it's a totally different world. Most equipment will not fit into an entrance. This is above ground scene of a rescue. This is Spanish moss. I'm like, man, I tell you, how many times I've been there? Very little room for patient assessment. Above ground, we have all these assessments we do on people. You know, we have the head to toe, and we have all this assessment and check their back. We check everything. Cave rescue, you are lucky if you have enough room to even take a pulse sometimes. There's just this, you just have to change things a lot. And what people don't understand above ground, and a lot of cavers don't understand, it can take hours or days or weeks to get someone out of a cave, depending on how mobile they are or are not. Different type of equipment. This is what we're telling, and for new cavers, this is good for you also. You need a helmet, but not a bike helmet, because bike helmets are for side impact or back impact. Caver helmets, climbing helmets, are for above rock fall, because most of the time you're going to have a problem. It's going to be from the top down. So you want to make sure that you don't have a bike helmet, because that's engineered differently. You need 3 sources of lights that mount on your helmet, not in your hand. I take 5 lights in. Everybody's heard of Murphy, right? Murphy lives in caves. When I first started caving, nobody taught me this. I had 3 lights, but 2 were in my backpack. I had crawled on my back on this big tunnel, and I'm crawling, and there's a chimney going up. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to go there. And all of a sudden my light went out. And I went, okay, I have another one. I went, I can't get to it. That's when it occurred to me, you need to have more than 1 light on your helmet, because it's great to have it, but if it's not accessible to you, it's not going to do you any good. So I always teach people to have 2 lights on their helmet. If one goes out, you can click the other on. My first year of NCRC, everything was deconned. They killed all of our equipment. It's not so bad now. But my lights went through decon the first, second, third day. Well, by the end of the week, it was called mock rescue. Big rescue. We've got 100 people in this cave, massive cave. And I'm putting equipment down, and I reach down, and my light literally falls apart. I'm like, okay, fine. I got another one. And I pull it out, and I turn it on. It won't work. It'd been deconned too many times. So I pull out my 3rd light. It turned on and shut off, and that was it. Thankfully, I always keep a small one around my neck. I pulled it up and used that, and with everybody else's light, you got, all these people, it worked. But Murphy does live in a cave. Okay, so make sure you plan for that. Let's see, appropriate clothing, food and water, gloves, knee pads, elbow pads. I tell a lot of new cavers to get your elbow pads and knee pads at DI. They're cheap. And then, if you want something more sophisticated, you can get it later, but and get your cave clothes at DI, boots, pee bottles, etc. Different equipment. This is a caver's pack. For most cavers like these guys, they're circled. This is our search and rescue packs. Okay, 65 liters. They are not going to go into a cave. I had a rescue once, attempted rescue, where they handed me this great big huge box of medical stuff and said, take this in the cave. I go, that won't even fit through the cave gate. And they were really stunned. Okay, different packs. The reason we have smaller packs is because we go into small places. Different equipment. Like I said, a lot of equipment won't fit through the gate. Transporting devices underground are totally different than above ground. Above ground, we have litters. They have their metal baskets. They have wheels on them. They're great until you get them underground. Those metal baskets catch every rock, they're awful. So we have a sked here, OSS, and a fernal. Now, a sked, question, does anybody know what sked stands for? Matt? I have a price if anybody knew. It's just one of those weird things. It means subterranean Kendrick extraction device. I was surprised. I didn't think it's good for anything, but that was what it stands for. And drag sheets. We had a rescue, an attempted mock rescue Gretchen set up. Oh, it was from the dark side. And the guy had got himself wedged in so bad, we had to take his helmet off, put him on a drag sheet, make him turn his head sideways so we could pull him through this little crevice he got himself in. Typical caver. Okay, you have to think about these things. Communication. The three words that describe communication are bad, bad, and really bad. The problem is that things just don't work. A lot of times we'll end up using runners, someone with a note, and they run it out to command. Or we have these ones, which reminds me, I have 3 of these, if you ever need them, and some reels. But these are about the only thing. The low tech works really well for cave rescue, and they're pretty simple to use. Communication. Command structures for above ground is everything's above ground and is top down. That does not work at all for caves. Communication from caves is usually bottom up. A lot of times on a pretty intense rescue, you'll have CP command post will move inside the cave or really close to the cave, depending on how deep it is. And it's better working that way than working from somebody in a mobile unit sitting out in a parking lot somewhere telling everybody above ground what to do. It doesn't work so well when you're underground. Movement through caves. This is something that a lot of cavers aren't aware of. The statistic shows that for about every 10 minutes you move into a cave, can it take us about an hour or more to get you out? Now, with cave trips being a minimum of 3 hours, maximum all day, you're talking days, if not maybe a week, to get somebody out, depending on whether or not they're mobile. Okay, so this is really important for you to understand. Different equipment. I think that's Eric. Yeah. These are rocks. People have bottoms, all kinds of things. But this is search and rescue. Trying to explain to them they don't work in caves because caves are dirty, they're gritty, and it'll blow out your fate in no time. Besides, it twists the rope really bad. Different equipment, different harnesses. Caver harnesses versus climbing harnesses are totally different. You have a different center of gravity for caver harnesses. Caver harnesses are low centered, so by the time you put your ascending gear on and you sit down, it's not hitting you in the chin, which is what happens with the caver with a climbing harness. Back in the long time ago, when nobody had any money, I knew how to adjust, kind of like twist things on a climbing harness enough that we could get the curl to work. It's not optimal, but it does work. The problem with a climbing harness is your gear will flip out and then you get jammed on rope. There's several different types of systems that a lot of us know. Search and rescue, I had no idea what the frog was. They thought that was pretty funny. Rigging. Rigging outside is totally different. I've done a lot of high angle rescues and have a lot of training out in Moab on their cliffs. Beautiful place to train. But none of that does any good underground. It really doesn't, because we have rebelays, you have cross knots, you have traverses, you have changeovers and crossovers, and you have to go up a rope, which for mountain rescue is a little difficult. So this is Petty John's in Alabama, or is it over the Georgia? It's right in that tag area. This is Petty John's NCRC, showing that our rescues are not high angle. Our rescues are cramped, they're confined, and they may look like kind of like a spaghetti mess, but once you have been through a class, you go, oh, well, it all starts making sense. Okay. Rigging, this is above ground versus underground. Underground, our knots are small. Everything is small because we don't have a lot of space. And as we're doing our, like any of our mechanical advantage, you don't have a lot of room to reset. Reduce space, compact systems. This is from the Nutty Putty attempted rescue years ago, setting up some of the bolts. Okay, counterbalances. We have climbing, repelling, diminishing loops. These are things that are really surprisingly simple that if you learn, you'll be able to get your person out or get yourself out if you're injured. Gretchen used to make us, she'd tie one of our arms behind our back and make us go out with one arm. And then she'd tie a leg up so that we have one leg and one hand to try and get out, to try and simulate different injuries so that we knew how to get out if we were injured. Extremely limited anchor points. This is in Oregon in the lava tubes. There's almost no place to anchor anything. And we learned something called UFO. You find a couple of little places and you have all these little tiny strings and everything comes together in the center. And 3 or 4 or 5 of those by themselves would not hold. But when you get 8, 10, 12 of those, we could haul a double people on them. It's amazing how it works because it disperses the weight. These are the kind of things you will learn at NCRC. This is called a stimple, right there where you've got the log across. There's a dead man, there's human anchors, there's all kinds of things we use underground that aren't allowed above ground. Medical care, sometimes there's no space. We can't do an assessment of patients. The best thing for them to do is get them above ground because underground is going to kill them. They will die faster underground than if you move them and get them to the entrance. If you leave them, hypothermia will kill them first. All right. Most patients are, I'm sorry, I know there's a lot of us women, but most males are the caregivers. But there's a lot of women. The best thing you can do if you have someone that's hurt is say, can you move? Can you slide? Can you crawl? Can you slide on your butt all the way out? The less you have to do hands-on, the safer for your people and it's safer for that person. So if they can, let them. Too many times people, no, we're going to get scared. It's like, no. Letting them take themselves out is the best thing. If they even want to crawl, they got knee pads on, let them crawl. Okay. Let them do as much as possible. Don't try to be a hero because then you're putting yourself and your team, the other people at risk. Let them help as much as possible. Okay, medical care. I already covered that. Okay. You what?
What's a drag sheet?
Oh, good question. A drag sheet is anything that you can put somebody on and drag them on. Tarp. A large coat, anything that you can use to drag. That's what I was talking about in the Great Basin. We put the gentleman on somebody's really long coat, made him turn his head so we could drag him literally through the really small crevice that we had to get him through. So yeah, if you have any questions, please let me know because I tend to forget that not everybody knows this stuff. Lap pass. This is when you're sitting down, like maybe you have a big crevasse, you sit down and you put your feet on the other side, and it's deep enough where you can't walk through it, but you need to get the person across, and you literally slide the litter to have people lined up, just sitting across, as many as possible, and you slide the sked across on everybody's lap. The person who's done gets up, jumps, and crawls across everybody, sometimes even across the patient, to the other side and sits down. And so you're just kind of like sliding across. Leapfrog, pretty much the same thing. Standing pass right here. Turtle, so much fun. You're down on all fours and you have several people down, and then they pass the litter over the top of your back, which is all fine and dandy, except for this summer. I was a turtle and they left me there. And then Gretchen gets like, no, you gotta get her. Because I'm like, guys, I'm still here. Yeah, but we're thinking about where we're going next. Yeah, but I'm the only turtle. Okay, so it does have its disadvantages. Thankfully, I had my arms like this on a ledge and I had my head, on my, so it wasn't as bad, but still, you can't forget about your turtle. Okay, environmental. When it comes to a contest between cavers and the cave wins every time. You cannot beat a cave. There's just no way. We are not, that is not our home. We are just visitors there, and we will lose the battle every single time. Navigation. Oh, this one just really freaked out search and rescue people. When you're above ground, you have maps, you have compasses, we have all these sophisticated programs. We learn how to do all this cool mapping and how to use our GPS and spots and everything. That's all great. And then that was a cave map. They thought that they didn't think this was real until the NCRC people go, yeah, that's a really easy cave map. Okay. So they were kind of surprised to go from a topo to a simple cave map. Okay. Give that to a search and rescue people and watch them melt down. Okay. Local and this is pretty much the end. Local and national resources. What I always tell above ground rescuers is know your local cavers. They're used to moving underground. Many are trained in rescue, or they know how to move underground. They know how to go up and down ropes. They know what all the equipment's for. They can work in teams. They have the proper equipment. And then I always direct them to the grotto or to the caves.org, which reminds me, if you guys go to the NSS website, which I hope they finally fixed it, we have 10 years worth of webinars on any kind of cave subject that you want. I was a webinar chairman until I retired. We have 10 years worth of everything from caves on Mars, on the moon, cave diving robots, all kinds of information. But if you want to learn, there's also a lot. We started a cave rescue library before I retired. There's a lot of information on there, and it's waiting for you to use it. Let's see. Okay, so National Cave Rescue. We do have gear caches for NCRC around the country, which a lot of cavers aren't aware of. The Cave Rescue instructors know where they are and how to access them. And basically, go to NCRC, go to NCRC, go to NCRC. I can't say that enough. It is really, really important. You will never know how important it is until you need it. And then it's too late.
What skill level is expected for starting at CRC?
You have to have a brain. You have to be able to go on and off rope. Everything is on the website, but you have to be able to go on and off rope. You have to be able to ascend and then change over and come down. And you have to tie, I think, like 8 different knots, 8 different knots. It's all listed on the caves.org, and then you go to NCRC. But it's really the first year. It's great. I've retaken the second year a couple of times because there's so much to learn on the second year. And there's just so much to learn. I can't say enough about NCRC, but the more you know, the more you're going to save your life and maybe the life of cavers. Small party rescue is really, really important because we have, since we started pushing this, there's been so many times we've had people call and tell us how they saved themselves by what they learned at these seminars that would have turned into a full-blown rescue. And then you get people who don't know what they're doing underground, and then there's liability. So it really does save lives. Anyway, that's all. I'll turn it back to Matt. White space is for like if they're digging a tunnel, a ditch or something, and the dirt falls in, or a building collapses. Automobiles that are pile up, that's confined space. They use a lot of pieces of wood to raise things up to get into there. Whereas in cave rescue, you're underground. And there's no raising or lowering things. We do cave modification sparingly, which means we will do microblasting on walls and other things to get to our patient, which we do that sparingly, but sometimes it's the cave of the person. And that's the one and only time the cave will lose. Is when you may have to blast part of it off to be able to get to the person. That's a good question. Anybody else before?
Can we use like soap or oil or anything to make things move faster? I know in slot canyon rescues, there's.
Yeah, we had that suggestion before. It doesn't work. Number one, who carries super oil with them underground? We've had someone say, well, bring it in and try it. And with all the grit and the dirt, it didn't work out well. What we found. You can't get out, relax. When you finally get people to relax and take a breath and get their mind up of what they're doing, their muscles aren't tense anymore, they're not tight. And then all of a sudden it's, oh, yeah, I'm gonna pop right out. But that in above ground would work, but underground it's not feasible. But the biggest thing, if someone is stuck, relax. You will get them out because then they're not so panicked and so tight. If that makes sense? Anything else? Now I will turn this over to Bryce.
Wonderful. I think that covers it. That's the meeting. Does anyone have any very pressing grotto business to discuss right now? Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Crystal Cave
Yeah.
in February. Trip real cool fast. We only have about 6 slots available. So if you want to get on the trip and you haven't been on the ground before, it's a great cave to get into. So contact me as fast as you can, then it'll get away with it.
So,
Well, I was gonna say, for anybody that's new here, that we have a really good track record with saving the caves despite all the talk about rescue. We just like to be prepared. So it's not like every third time we're out in caves, there's a terrible. Right, I mean, I just wanna say that, I don't know how many people can remember to it, but we emphasize this. She's right, it's very seldom that there's a rescue. But you don't want to be caught with it. Right. So most caterers are very wise in what they're doing, but we also have, murder sometimes happens, waterfall, something like that. But that doesn't happen a lot. But you need to be prepared to live in the time. And then I put 2 photos on the calendar for Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and to clear any confusion. It says tentative, and part of that is a little bit scheduled depending for people. And then I don't know whether people can do the weekend or not weekend, so we'll work that out depending on interest.
do you mean for Onyx? I think I was kind of planning on it being just like a Saturday thing, honestly, because it's so close to Salt Lake.
I mean, because I'm available like other days too, if other people don't have like Saturday, so.
I'll do it one of the days, but I don't want to go up 2 days in a row. That sounds shitty.
We put it on for several days and then tentative, of course, snow again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, actually, yeah, no. Yeah, no, we'd probably die right now. Has it?
Yeah.
Actually?
Not like extremely terrible.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we'll see how it is, I guess. Yeah, I believe there was talk of a post meeting. Are we going some
Yeah,
Freddy's? Yeah, we're going to Freddy's after this. Yeah. Yeah, normally there's like 10 people here and 2 of them go. We're going back to Little Bro tonight. Yeah.
If anyone seems to have any grotto questions or is interested in joining or whatever, you can talk to. I'll be up here right after the meeting sometime.
Great.
Great. Wonderful.
I just checked the time that I gave you to make sure none of my stuff was in there.